Hello and welcome to Low Budget Gaming and welcome to another First Descendant video. So season 3 is less than a month away, and so I thought why not preview Nell and her abilities, look at potential build ideas, reactors, things like that. We got plenty of information in the dev stream. They shared all her abilities and Transcendent modules, so I thought we'll just quickly do an overview and try to figure out what sort of builds we can work out. It doesn't look like it's going to be too complicated. She has the ability to turn her bullet shots into weak point hits basically, and she also seems to do a lot of damage with the skills as well. So she seems to be like suited for both the roles. So we could have a potential situation where we have another very strong descendant. So let's have a quick look at how she works. So first up, they have the screen of her passive and her two modules and the four abilities. Let's look at the passive first. So passive is called Suspicion and Insight. So with the ESIV, she can mark the enemies, and the marked enemies will take extra damage. You can mark up to 8 enemies, and the other passive skill is she can also open the encrypted storage boxes. So she'll use the ESIV, inflict the sort of target the enemies, they'll be marked, and the marked enemies will take more damage with your skills, with your guns, things like that. So very straightforward here. The first ability is called Breach Discharge. So basically you do some damage with your projectiles. The marked enemies once again will take more damage. So you mark the enemies with your ESIV, hit them with your projectiles. You have 2 stacks. This has a low cooldown, and this is a tech damage, tech type of skill, tech archetype. So it looks very straightforward. Then we move on to, let's move on to the second one. Unfortunately, they had these things in the background, so I have zoomed in and looked at it. Looks all right, but yeah, I wish they had shown it on the big screen, like full screen, without the need to look at the background. Now, the second one is called Ring of Breach. There seem to be 2 parts to this. So first, what she does is she creates this ring. So you see this ring around here, and there's also this thing in the middle. I think this is called Arche Breach, and this is the gravitational ring thing. So enemies near this will start getting debuffed, and this ring will do damage to them. So if you see here, they are getting weakened and they're taking damage. And then when you pull that ring back, it causes an explosion, and you retrieve the ring, and it also, I think, lowers the cooldown for your skill. So that is your second skill. All right, on to the third skill now. This one works with the second skill. So I think you need to have the second skill active. And instead of retrieving the second skill, you can use the third skill, and that will pull all the enemies in one place, sort of like Lepic skill, and then it'll also cause an explosion. So the way it seems to me is the second skill will be debuffing the enemies, and you can pull that back and do some damage with the explosion, or you can keep the second one active and then use the third one to pull in all the enemies and do some damage. You may also be able to use the first skill to hit the enemies further while they are getting debuffed with the second. So I see various combinations, second and third, second and first maybe. Third one, it seems, will not work without the second. Okay, so next, let's have a look here. Also notice we're only seeing white numbers, so it seems Nell is not a crit-based descendant. So we will be working without crit damage on the reactor, basically. So that is the Gravitic reversal, AoE type skill, and this is a tech skill. The first skill is tech, second is fusion, third is tech, fourth is fusion. Now, fourth skill is called Gaze of the Abyss, and this improves your firing enhancement. It gives you that weak point, and also buffs your allies. So you can see here all the skills will be turning into weak point, and you can also use your other abilities. So this one has a high cooldown, and if you are working with, say, sort of gun-based setup, I think this will be very handy. The second one also, I think, increases your weak point skill, but at the expense of movement, I think. Next, we have the first Transcendent module. This one changes the second and third skills. Okay, and they basically become more sort of buffing teammate type skills rather than debuffing the enemies and pulling in, exploding. So I don't see this one getting used a lot unless you probably use it in the Void Erosion Purge or things like that, where you have Glaze and Serenas with you and you can buff their gun damage. So I think it might be useful there, but I think on your own, this might not be that useful. The second Transcendent module looks more interesting. Now, the second Transcendent module called the Shattered Heart. What this does is this transforms the fourth skill into another sort of projectile style damage. So you can see the 4 or 5 shards, and then you hit them with your skill. It works with the first skill. So basically, your first skill will charge this up. Basically, sort of like the killer recipe for Blair, where he has that chef's touch that increases. So I think it's going to be similar to that. You charge it with your first and then use your fourth to hit multiple enemies. So basically, this one seems more useful to me, the second module. And this is probably going to change the archetype of the skill as well. I'm guessing this is fusion. Normally, this will turn into tech perhaps. So yeah, so that is, I think, my guess that this one will get more use. So you will be using your tab, your ESIF, you'll mark the enemies, you'll hit them with your first ability, then you'll unleash your fourth ability and do a lot of damage to multiple enemies. So that seems to be the case. I can see some similarities with the Blair's skills, some from Keelan perhaps. So yeah, interesting setup here. I think you can use her just as a skill-based descendant and also a combination of gun and skill, or maybe mostly gun. So yeah, she's going to be quite interesting. All right, so we're in the lab and we'll pretend Luna is Nell for a minute here and try to work out some builds. So basically the second Transcendent module, in my opinion, if I was to guess, will turn the fourth ability into a tech ability. Okay. Or even if it doesn't, the first and third abilities are tech abilities and they are the ones doing the damage. If you're running Nell without the Transcendent modules. So let's actually talk about the reactors. So for the reactors, if you're going with the tech ability, and as I said in the clip, I was not seeing orange crit numbers, so she's probably going to be on the low side of crit. So we will be working with the amplification mods and things like that. So you'll probably not need crit damage on the reactor. So something like this, tech skill power boost ratio and skill cooldown, I think this would be a good match for Nell, a safe bet, I guess. You can also have something with the fusion abilities if you're working with the fourth ability, and if it doesn't change with the Transcendent module where you are still doing damage with the fusion, then something like fusion with cooldown, fusion with duration cooldown would make more sense. But yeah, my money would be on the tech skill power and tech cooldown. So even if the fourth ability doesn't change, the first ability you'll be hitting the enemies with your shards after scanning with the ESIF, and the third ability you'll put the second ring of breach down, and the third one, the gravitational thing, you will use that to explode the enemies, pull all the enemies in and explode them. So 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, you will be doing that, and then when the cooldown is down on the fourth, you will use that as well. So this, I think, would be the safe bet for the reactor. The materialized mechanics with tech skill power and cooldown. Okay, now let's preview some potential builds. So if you're going with the tech, we'll go with the focus on tech, focus on non-attribute, or we can use the power increase if you're using the enlightened mage set. Let's just use the non-attribute for now for the sake of convenience. Maybe we might not use the enlightened mage set, or even if we use it, we may need the cooldown. So we have the tech amplification. We will need the non-attribute amplification. So this would be the base for the power. We saw decent duration on the ESIF. Her range on the rings was 300%. So we would need some range mods. So range would be scale expansion, and we could use amplification control. And we'll take the rest from perhaps the Arche Tuning and the inversion reinforcement if it stays the same. Then what we would need is maybe some duration, but we'll definitely need cooldown. So we'll go with our standard cooldown stuff. So nimble fingers, MP conversion, I don't have an M slot somewhere. All right, let's just put it somewhere here. MP conversion. Let's put this one here somewhere. Okay. Now that seems to be the base here. Um, we may, like I said, need some duration, some MP perhaps. We'll see when the time comes. But yeah, basically this is your base. Of course, one HP board to keep things interesting. But yeah, I think this would be the base setup here. And then again, depending on the Transcendent mode, if you're going with the fusion stuff, then you'll just swap out the focus on tech for focus on fusion, and tech amplification gets removed for non-attribute amplification and things like that. And you should have your base build. I'm expecting the core build to be something like this. Depending on one or two changes, we might switch things around. But I think this would be the base build for Nell. Now, for the external components, she seems to be the normal MP based descendant. So she has MP, she has shields. So we'll go with, let's say, with the Enlightened Mage. All these pieces. The fourth piece over here, the processor, you can go with something like this with the non-attribute, with ESIF display time on the processor alongside toxin resistance or something like that. And this will give you 97% more ESIF display time. So it should be handy with Nell. I don't think it will change things too much. It's not necessary, but we have the luxury of putting something else here on the processor. This is like the only component where we can play around a little bit. So something like the ESIF display would make sense. The inversion, I can't really say much because this is going to get changed quite a lot, but as long as we have the quantum domain, which gives us more power and range, this should be handy. Something to give us more HP, depending on how tough the enemies are in the Axion planes. Now for the Arche Tuning, because she's getting some weak point, we could take a few here, at least around here, take the weak point. And then on this side, we can probably just take the skill related stuff, get the MP, take the big skill. We go up here, take the cooldown, and see if we can get up to here. And I think this would be a reasonable setup. Of course, we may have a different mutant cell for her, something new. So yeah, something like this I think would work. If you are, again, depending on the gun, you may want to go further here. Some guns may have multi-hit, some may have crit damage. Colossus, you can go this way, things like that. So again, very basic idea of what we can expect with Nell. As for the guns, if you are going with tech, obviously we have the Secret Garden, good old Secret Garden. 1 and 3 skills will give you more power if they are tech skills. So basically this gives you more skill power over here. Let me just show you the thing again. When using a tech skill, grants the unique ability Pest Control with a set chance. So 50% chance, max tax, gives you more firearm attack, gives you more skill power. Okay, so this will be handy for Nell. You'll get more skill power over here. Now, if you're using the fusion, of course, we have the Peacemaker will also give you non-attribute power. And if you are sort of working with the gun setup where you want to do a lot of weak point damage, then something like the Python could be handy, in my opinion. So Python has a good weak point. You see here, I have modded this for 3 times weak point. So, and it also shoots very fast, has a high fire rate, does decent damage. It's a toxic hose. So I think this would be a good setup, because I think if the enemies are as tough as the developers were talking about in the dev stream, we would probably need multiple element type of guns. Like, let's say you are running Frena, you might probably want to have a gun that does chill damage, fire damage, and electric damage. So multiple different guns, because the enemies, when they come out of the tunnel after the first time, they'll be resistant to that element. So should be some interesting changes. So I think these would be the top 3 guns. What is the weak point on the... No, this is not good. So yeah, Python I think has a good chance. Thunder Cage would be good as well. Although Thunder Cage doesn't have very good weak point either. What about the Secret God? Okay, it's nothing great, but it's okay. So yeah, something like this I think would be the 3 main guns. Of course, we have 2 new guns coming out as well, so maybe one of them is perfectly suited for her. So yeah, so basically this is a rough idea I have and a guess, let's say, previewing Nell and how her abilities work. I think it all depends on that second Transcendent module. I think it's called the Shattered Heart. I have a feeling that will change the fourth ability from fusion to tech. And then this build will get very interesting. And you'll be using a lot of skills. You'll be using the Secret Garden, and you'll be marking the enemies with your tab, with your ESIF 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so yeah, I think she can be used as just purely skill based as well and purely gun based as well. So should be very interesting. Anyway, that's it for the preview for Nell. Let me know what you think. As far as power is concerned, I think she's going to be decently powerful. Probably not as strong as Serena, but I think she'll still be very strong. I can potentially see some people complaining already. Anyway, that's it for this one. Thank you for watching. See you next time.